Commander Urel of the Varan Dominion walked slowly through the metal corridor of the prison base. The lights above flickered, casting long shadows across the walls. The war between her people and the humans had lasted only 6 months, yet it had cost both sides more than a century's worth of pain. The Varan had captured many enemies before, but this one was different. One single human, unarmed, had surrendered without struggle after surviving for days on the frozen moon. When Urel entered the room, she expected fear. Every species she had ever interrogated had shown it: trembling voices, fast heartbeats, begging eyes. But the man sitting before her looked calm, even relaxed. His hands were bound, his face marked with dirt and blood, but his eyes were steady. She looked at him for several seconds, studying every detail. His expression was unreadable, yet it carried a quiet strength that made her uneasy. She walked around him, her tall figure casting a shadow across his face. "Human," she said coldly, her deep voice echoing. "You are in the heart of Varan space. You have no weapons, no friends, and no chance of rescue. Tell me, why don't you fear me?" For a moment, silence filled the air. The man lifted his eyes to hers. There was no hate, no pride, only calm. Then he answered softly, "Because I've already seen worse." The words hit her like a blade made of ice. Her chest tightened, and for the first time in years, she didn't know what to say. "Worse?" she repeated, her tail flicking in irritation. "You think anything is worse than death at my hands?" The man gave a small smile, though it wasn't a cruel one. "Death?" he said. "That's nothing new to us." His tone wasn't arrogant, but something about it made her step back slightly. He looked tired but not broken. Urel motioned to her guards to hold their weapons ready and walked closer again. She could feel his steady heartbeat, slow and controlled, not the rhythm of someone facing execution. "You humans are strange," she said at last. "Your kind refuses to surrender even when you are surrounded. You fight until there's nothing left. Is it pride? Stubbornness?" He shook his head slowly. "It's memory," he said quietly. "We remember what happens when we stop fighting." Her claws scraped lightly against the floor. "You speak in riddles, human. I want answers, not poetry." "Then you'll have to understand what made us," he said. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fear it, but we also learned to keep walking through that fear." Urel frowned. She had studied human biology and behavior. They were fragile, small, and weak compared to most species in the galaxy. Yet their armies had already destroyed 2 Dominion fleets and defended entire colonies against impossible odds. She didn't understand it. To test his words, she activated the memory scanner beside her. The device could project an image from the prisoner's surface thoughts. A beam of blue light scanned across his face, and for a moment the air shimmered. Then she saw it: cities in flames, oceans rising, storms tearing across continents. She saw humans walking through the chaos, pulling others from wreckage, fighting off machines, rebuilding again and again. She saw a child staring up at a burning sky with determination instead of despair. Her scales stiffened. The images were so real she could almost feel the heat and smell the smoke. She stopped the machine abruptly, her hands shaking. "What are you?" she whispered. He looked at her, calm as before. "Just human," he said. That answer didn't comfort her. It made her spine prickle. She had seen countless species fight for survival, but none with such endless endurance. She had seen warriors who feared death, leaders who begged for peace. But these humans seemed to carry something else, something older and heavier than fear. That night, Urel sat in her quarters reviewing his file. The name read, Elias Ward, rank unknown, born on Earth. There were fragments of his record: missions in cold regions, survival after orbital bombardments, rescue of civilians during planetary collapses. His last known operation listed a code she didn't recognize. It was classified even by Dominion intelligence. She closed the screen and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Something about this man was different. He didn't speak like a soldier. He spoke like someone who had lived through every nightmare imaginable and learned to stand tall anyway. The next day, she went back to the cell. He was awake, sitting cross-legged on the floor, his gaze distant. "You haven't eaten," she said. "I'm used to hunger," he replied simply. "Do you think you'll survive by refusing food?" she asked, curious now more than angry. He looked up, and there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Sadness, maybe, or understanding. "I'm not surviving," he said. "I'm waiting. For what?" she asked. "For the moment you understand what I meant yesterday." She frowned. You mean when you said you've already seen worse? He nodded. Yes. Uriel stepped closer, her tail twitching in irritation again. Then tell me what you've seen that could make you fearless in front of me. He tilted his head slightly, as if searching for the right words. We come from a planet that kills without mercy. Fire, ice, storms, disease, everything tries to wipe us out. Yet we kept going. We didn't become fearless because we wanted to. We became fearless because we had to. He looked her directly in the eyes, and she felt a strange chill run down her back. Fear teaches most species to run, he said. It taught us to stand still. Her breath caught. She didn't know why, but she couldn't look away. His words didn't sound like a threat. They sounded like truth, simple and heavy. When she left the cell, she couldn't shake the sound of his voice. The guards looked uneasy too. One whispered, "Commander, that human." He isn't like the others, she didn't reply. But later, in her command room, she found herself staring out the viewport at the distant blue glow of Earth. For the first time, she wondered if her people had misunderstood the war completely. Maybe they weren't fighting monsters. Maybe they were fighting survivors. That thought followed her into the night. She dreamed of the humans' words echoing in the darkness. Because I've already seen worse. When she woke, her hands were trembling, though she didn't know why. The great commander of the Dominion, who had faced battles without flinching, now found herself afraid, not of death, but of understanding. She knew that tomorrow she would go back to him again. Not to interrogate him, but to ask something else. She wanted to know what made humanity so strong that even the stars seemed to fear them. And deep inside, a quiet voice whispered in her mind. The morning began with silence. The stars above the Varen base shimmered like cold eyes, and Commander Uriel stood before the large glass wall of her control room. She hadn't slept much. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the human's calm face and heard his words again. Because I've already seen worse. Something about those words refused to leave her mind. They felt less like pride and more like a truth she didn't want to understand. An alarm suddenly broke the quiet. Red lights flashed through the corridors. Her communicator buzzed as one of her lieutenants shouted, "Commander! Unknown ships approaching fast. They are using stealth fields our scanners can't lock on." Uriel's heart thumped once, sharply. Only one species in the region used stealth that advanced. Humans. Activate defense grid, she ordered. Seal all exits. Prepare the interceptors. But before her soldiers could move, the power flickered. The lights died. The control screens went black. Then one by one, backup lights glowed red. The air was filled with a low humming sound that grew louder with every passing second. Uriel realized what it was. A pulse disruptor wave, human-made, designed to disable enemy systems without destroying them. She turned toward the prison section immediately. Her mind knew what they were here for. When she reached the hallway, she saw the doors already unlocking. The energy locks on the human's cell flickered and released with a faint hiss. The man inside, Elias Ward, stood quietly as if he had expected this. "You called them?" she demanded, raising her plasma blade. He shook his head. "No, they didn't need my call. Humans don't leave their own behind." A distant rumble echoed as the base shook. Uriel staggered slightly, catching herself on the wall. "Your people are attacking us." "They're rescuing everyone," he said calmly. "Even your soldiers if they're hurt." That made her pause. "You expect me to believe that?" He looked at her, eyes steady. "You've seen our memories, Commander. You know what kind of monsters we've faced. If we wanted revenge, there would be nothing left of this moon. But we came for life, not death." She didn't answer. The floor trembled again. Through the walls, she heard blaster fire, metal doors crashing open and muffled voices. Human voices. But there was something strange in those sounds. No one was screaming. The humans moved with silence and precision, avoiding unnecessary killing. She stared at him, confused. "Why would your people risk so much for one man?" He gave a small, almost sad smile. "Because that's what makes us human. We fight for each other, always." The door to the cell opened with a heavy clang. Two figures in black combat armor stepped inside. Their faces were hidden behind helmets marked with the blue insignia of Earth's expeditionary forces. One saluted Elias. "Captain Ward, we're here to extract you." "Captain?" Uriel blinked in disbelief. This prisoner, this quiet man who sat calmly through interrogation, was a captain? Elias nodded to them. "Status?" "All systems neutralized. Dominion soldiers contained." No fatalities. Good, he said firmly. Then he turned to Uriel. You should come with us, Commander. Her eyes narrowed. You're offering me mercy after I imprisoned you? I'm offering you understanding, he said. You wanted to know what we've seen, what made us this way. Come and see for yourself. Before she could answer, a section of the ceiling burst open. Smoke filled the corridor and a group of her guards rushed in. One aimed his rifle at Elias, shouting, "Get away from the commander." Elias moved faster than she could follow. In a single motion, he stepped in front of her, pulling her out of the line of fire. The plasma bolt struck the wall, exploding in sparks. He raised his hand, signaling his team not to retaliate. No killing, he ordered. Disarm them. His men obeyed instantly. Within seconds, her guards were on the ground, unharmed but unable to fight. Uriel stared at him, stunned. You protected me? He looked at her without expression. You're not my enemy. Not anymore. The calm tone of his voice unsettled her again, just like the first day she met him. Even surrounded by chaos, he moved with quiet control. There was no anger, only purpose. They moved through the damaged corridors together. Humans and Varen soldiers passed each other in confusion, some too shocked to even raise their weapons. The humans didn't shoot unless attacked, and even then, they disabled rather than destroyed. It wasn't war, it was discipline. When they reached the exit bay, Uriel saw the scale of it all. Human ships hovered silently above the base, sleek and dark, their engines glowing faint blue. Dropships moved like shadows, landing and taking off with precision. For the first time, she realized how advanced they had become. Your people could have destroyed us easily, she said quietly. Elias looked at her. We could have, he agreed. But then we'd become what we fought against. She didn't understand. Why risk compassion in a galaxy built on fear? He glanced at the wounded soldiers being helped into medical shuttles. Because compassion is harder than war, he said. That's why it matters. His team led them toward a waiting ship. Before boarding, Uriel stopped and looked back at the base. The Varen banners still hung across the walls, symbols of dominance and conquest. Yet they looked small now, like memories of something fading. On the flight up, she sat quietly, watching through the window as the moon grew smaller beneath them. The human crew moved efficiently around her, polite but distant. She could feel no hatred from them, only focus. Elias stood near the viewport, hands clasped behind his back. His uniform, now clean, bore insignia she didn't recognize. She walked closer, her curiosity stronger than her pride. Captain Ward, she said slowly, you told me fear teaches your kind to stand still. I think I finally understand what you meant. He turned slightly. Do you? You don't fight to prove you're fearless, she said. You fight because you already know what fear feels like and you don't let it control you. For the first time, he smiled genuinely. That's closer than most ever get. They traveled in silence for a while. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, cold and bright. When they reached the human flagship, the hangar opened like the mouth of a giant beast. Uriel stepped inside, feeling a strange sense of awe. Everywhere she looked, she saw humans moving with quiet confidence, mechanics, medics, engineers. Some nodded politely to her as if she were just another guest. Why are they not afraid of me? She asked softly. Elias looked at her. Because fear ends where understanding begins. Later, as she stood by a viewing deck, the human fleet began to move. They didn't chase the fleeing Varen ships. They didn't fire a single shot. Instead, they transmitted a message across the system, a promise that all prisoners, regardless of species, would be released and treated with care. Uriel felt her chest tighten. No empire in the galaxy behaved like this. The Dominion would never show mercy like this. And yet, these humans did it without hesitation. She turned to Elias once more. Your people, you could rule the stars if you wanted to. He shook his head. We've learned that ruling isn't the same as surviving. We don't want to rule. We just want to live in peace. She looked down at her hands, her claws trembling slightly. Then perhaps we have been the ones who lived in fear all along. He nodded. Maybe. Fear can make a species strong, but it can also make them blind. As the ship prepared to jump to hyperspace, Uriel watched the stars blur into long streaks of light. She remembered her first meeting with him, the calm prisoner, the words that chilled her spine. Now she finally understood them. Because I've already seen worse, he hadn't spoken those words as a threat. He had spoken them as truth. Humanity had seen storms, fire, hunger, and endless loss, and still found the strength to rise. That was why they didn't fear. That was why they stood. When the jump completed and the stars settled again, Uriel looked at Elias one last time. "Maybe we'll meet again, human," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Maybe next time we won't be on opposite sides." The stars shimmered outside, endless and bright, and for the first time in her life, Commander Uriel felt something new, not fear, not anger, but hope.